Okay, so you'll note that each of you have been given one of these counters, either an S, a W, an O, or a T, and of course this stands for the standard SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And what we're going to do is to give you a short presentation followed by an activity that centres around these categories. And so if you've been given an S, what we'd like you to do during the presentation is to focus on those aspects of electronic assessment that are strengths of that particular approach. If you've got a W, of course, similarly, you'll be looking at the weaknesses associated with the use of electronic assessment. So broadly, if you've got an S, regardless of your existing opinion, what we'd like you to do is to kind of play the role of an enthusiast who's really keen on the use of electronic assessment. And if you're looking at weaknesses, perhaps you might be playing the role of a critical reader of electronic assessment. If you've got an O, you'll be kind of strategic thinkers that are thinking about the potential applications of electronic assessment and the benefits that might bring to your institution. And if you've been given a T, you could perhaps play the role of someone who's worried about some of the aspects of EAM that might have a detrimental effect on provision. And so what we're going to ask you to do after the presentation is to gather together in groups that match one another. So we'll have a specialist team looking at the strengths of electronic assessment. So what you'll need to do is find a group of 4 where you all match and you all have an S. So you'll all have an S within that group. Similarly, if you've got a W, you need to find 3 other people who've got a W and so on. Now, don't work in groups of 3 because that would cause a problem later. If we've got an uneven number, what we're suggesting is that you make up a group of 5 and that you then travel in pairs, if you like. So if you've got 5 in your group, you'll have 3 people who are travelling alone and 2 people who are travelling together. And by travelling, I'm referring to the second phase of this activity, which is instead of working together in a group where you all match, you will then carry the information that you've assembled in this group into a new team. So if you've generated a list of the strengths of electronic assessment, we'll then reassemble in phase 2 into a SWOT team. So at that stage, what you'll need to do is to find one of each of the alternative perspectives, so reassemble into a new group like that. So we'll have SWOT teams. And when you're in those new groups, what we'd like you to do is to share what you've discovered in your specialist teams with the others in your group, and based on the overall picture that generates, to come up with a 4 or 5 point strategy plan for the use of electronic assessment within a particular institution or across collaborative provision, depending on your particular perspective and interests. And then at the end, what we'll do is to share and perhaps do some evaluation of those different strategies.